Hello everybody! Have you ever noticed the trend in people who say a low-carb diet helped them to lose weight or even cured a condition they had? I decided to investigate. Today we'll be discussing low-carbohydrate diets, or LCDs for short. These diets have exploded in popularity over the last decade as an easy way to lose weight. I decided to look at what some of the evidence states regarding these claims. Before starting this discussion, it is important to note that the U.S. dietary guidelines state that a healthy amount of carbohydrates should be around 45 to 65% of daily calories. The first study I will be discussing is a meta-analysis, a collection of studies published by the British Journal of Nutrition, or BJN in short. In the paper, they took 11 studies where 1,369 participants were fed either a low-carbohydrate diet classified as an intake of carbohydrates less than 20%, carbohydrate consumption at 20 to 30 grams per day, or a low-fat diet. The duration that each study lasted was from 8 to 24 months. The BGM paper wanted to assess both diets' impact on weight loss and cardiovascular disease risk factors. These risk factors included high-density lipoprotein cholesterol, or HDL cholesterol, low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, or LDL cholesterol, and body weight in particular. The researchers discussed later in the paper that it may not be a good idea for people with a high risk of cardiovascular disease to commit to the diet due to the rise in LDL cholesterol. The researchers also discussed that studies of longer duration may be needed to assess the longer-term impacts of a low-carbohydrate diet. A different meta-analysis, this time published in 2020 by scientific journal PLOS ONE, also looked at various studies regarding low-carbohydrate diets. To be included, the studies needed to follow up with the participants with a few factors. The participants needed to be followed up for at least 3 months after the diet began. Participants must have no known diseases during the trial, and the proportion of carbohydrates in the diet of the low-carb groups is lower than 40% of their daily calories. The control group, or the group that low-carb diet would be compared to, would have a diet with 45 to 55% of their daily calories coming from carbohydrates. This trial predominantly looked at HDL cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, total cholesterol, and body weight. Other less prominent indicators include fasting blood glucose. This is glucose levels in the blood after having not eaten for several hours, and blood pressure. The low-carb groups had their weight and blood pressure decrease more in comparison to the control group. Weight loss was much more dramatic in the low-carb group compared to the other groups. However, a trend for the low-carb group showed these risk factors for cardiovascular disease had much less effect on the studies that lasted for 2 years in comparison to the high-carb diets. The researchers noted that the weight loss impact decreasing over time may be due to the poor compliance by subjects. Like the authors in the previous study, this paper's authors stated that further studies of longer duration would be needed to assess more long-term impacts of the diet. I hope you have had some clarity on some of the effects that low-carb diets could have. If you want to try one, make sure to speak with a registered dietitian who can help you with planning what to eat. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.